Hello and welcome to Trader Chat. It's Johnny Ward and Flynn Goward on this Monday morning, and it is a tragic Monday morning for racing following the announcement of the death of Lorna Brooke, who rode 17 winners, including a winner in Ireland, a historic winner in Ireland. And Lorna was a talented rider, and Fairyhouse were delighted to have her when she rode her winner in Ireland that time. And as we say, we extend our sympathies to her family. And just a reminder, when you back horses, and it's just a reminder of the dangers involved for horse and jockey. And rest in peace, Lorna Brooke. Obviously, the big news in sport today, Flynn, is with the Super League, which obviously came through sort of last night. I guess from an Irish perspective, we've a small League of Ireland here. We have a lot of supporters of English football, and I think certainly my reaction so far, or my feeling, is that there's a lot of negativity towards this. What's the feeling over there?
Huge negativity. Like I can't understate how much negativity there is. The negativity is placed in so many different places, though. It's not just one thing about it. There's so many different aspects. And I think what you have to remember is when you look at the different opinions coming from different people, a lot of the, especially the public opinion from very famous faces that are in the sport and are in punditry, etc., a lot of them will be biased. If we look at Sky, for example, they obviously show a lot of the Premier League games, so it's going to impact them massively. So then the pundits are kind of coming over the top, and we saw Michael Richards yesterday talking about it's all just greed and it's about money in football, which is true. But then he's working for a company, Sky, that also have been trying to rip off fans in the last year or so. So it's a bit of perspective in terms of who's saying what. When I just break it down from a purely fans perspective, obviously no money kind of driven aspects for me at all in terms of football is purely a fan basis. We obviously know that the big six are going to be potentially joining, or they've signed up to join. I think the first question is just why are these teams in it? Why are they picked? And it's just a real elitist way to do it. I'm an Arsenal fan. I don't think we should be in it, even if it does become a thing, because we're completely useless at the moment. And the only reason we're there is money. Our owner seems to be very close to the board. I think he was going to be the kind of vice chairman or something like that. So that's the reason that we're in. Spurs are going to get in because they've got money. They shouldn't really be there. The whole lack of qualification is the issue for me, and the fact that those teams are going to stay there and they're not going to be relegated. There's no strive to get into the league. I know there's going to be 5 per year, but that's tiny. Why should these 15 kind of elitist clubs be in there, other than the fact that it's just all about money? And that is the only reason why this is clearly happening. Dortmund and PSG have kind of said that they're going to stay put, but then they have very close ties to UEFA. So that'll be the reason for that. I think what's going to be really interesting.
Bayern as well.
Yeah. Sorry, Bayern as well. What's going to be really interesting is the kind of perceptions of managers. We haven't really seen any managers yet kind of come out and condemn it. They're in a really tough spot, because if you're Jurgen Klopp and you came out in 2019, which he did, and said he didn't like the idea of a Super League, if he comes out and condemns it now, where does he sit with the owners? And essentially his boss is boss's boss. So Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was asked after the game, I think it was yesterday, and he was in a tough spot and kind of pushed all the questions back, saying I need to go back and read the proposals. But I think that's going to be the really interesting point, is how managers and players respond to it. The first kind of player to come out and speak about it is Ander Herrera, who plays for PSG. He's in a very kind of easy position, because he could speak from the aspect that he thinks it's a terrible idea, it's taken away from the game. But he's in quite an easy position, because he's playing for a team that aren't getting involved in it and aren't getting involved in the proposal. So I think what will be really interesting is when the players who are playing for the teams that are going to potentially join this league in the near future, what their opinions are, what the managers' opinions are, and just the fact that they might get stopped playing for their country. Like, imagine coming up to the Euros this year and being a Man United player, a Real Madrid player, a Barcelona player, and not being able to play for your country if that gets blocked by UEFA, etc. So kind of all very, very new news, and I guess that we'll hear more about it in the week to come. But real troubling times for football, not good times for racing and football, for completely different reasons, obviously, this morning, Johnny.
Yeah, you're quite young, and you would have grown up with football being slightly different to, I guess, when I grew up. But like, for most of football's 100 to 150 year existence, it's been a game that's been sustained by working class fans who go to the game and have paid in and watched their local team. And if you move away from that, and obviously we've had in the pandemic, football being sustained, I guess, by to an extent government money, but also by money of people who are just paying to watch it on TV, you're getting into a very dangerous position then. What is the identity of the club in that community? What does it matter anymore that Liverpool is from Liverpool? What does it matter for the working class fans? So I think maybe in Ireland we can look at this, and we've had a lot of clubs bring out these kind of piss take statements this morning saying they refused, going to the Super League or whatever. But there's been a lot of likes on Twitter because I think, maybe people in Ireland just like the fact that it is a local league. Basically, the players are relatable to, and the league is sustained by the fans going to the games, and it's not sustained by people in India paying to watch it or whatever, and it's not sustained by greed.
Yeah, I completely kind of agree with that, and the way it is run. What I can't believe is that, I mean, the fan outroar is just huge. Like, it's absolutely massive. And the fact that Premier League clubs and other clubs around Europe have been able to be allowed to kind of get to this stage by letting these billionaire investors who have nothing to do with football just come in and obviously want to turn into a business. They're sole investors, and they are businessmen and women who just want to make money. They're not thinking about football as a game. It's purely just how can we make it the most exciting and marketable sport, rather than thinking about the actual kind of grassroots of football, who are going to be completely forgotten by this, of course, and it's going to devalue the actual domestic league. So I just can't believe that I've been able to get to this stage and fans haven't had any input. It's just kind of happening with the complete disregard of fans, and that just seems completely alien to me, the fact that they're even allowed to do this. But then they've been allowed to get to this stage by the domestic leagues and the domestic associations, who have let these kind of real billionaire owners come into power, and they've taken control of the clubs rather than fans, which has become quite apparent today and yesterday.
Has anyone canvassed Jose Mourinho on his opinion of the Super League?
Not quite yet, but then that it could have been the reason why he's gone. I mean, the sources that are coming out of the club are saying that it's nothing to do with his stance on the Super League, if he does have a stance, which I'm sure he does, knowing Jose Mourinho.
It's trader chat, and we're finally going to get some relevant markets here.
Yeah, exactly. So we have the next permanent Tottenham manager. Obviously, Jose has been given the boot by Daniel Levy this morning. Must be in charge for 10 competitive matches to be settled as a winner. We got 9 to 4 the field. I'm going to butcher some of these names, but Julian Nagelsmann, 9 to 4 favourite. Brendan Rodgers in there at 8 to 1. Eric Ten Hag in there at 8s as well. Allegri is also 8s. Then we go to Eddie Howe at 12 to 1. Can't see that happening. Joaquin Lowe 12s. Steven Gerrard 14, and then we are 16 bar. But there's plenty of managers in there and potential managers in there who could take control of Tottenham. I don't really know where they go from here. I'm surprised they've done it at this stage, but it might just be to kind of release it when this other news has come out about the Euro Super League, and hopefully it gets brushed under the carpet, which I think it probably has a little bit.
Brendan Rodgers has been an interesting one. Obviously, he's had his shot at a big club with Liverpool, did very well at Liverpool. I think that should not be forgotten. I wonder, would it appeal to him?
Yeah, potentially. He's in a real good spot at the moment, though, isn't he, in terms of where his team's going? But then this Euro Super League will throw a spanner into the works everywhere, because obviously Spurs are a team that are going to potentially be in it, and he's in a real good place where he's obviously at the moment. So I think that before any kind of decisions are made about the next manager to go to Spurs, I think they need to decide kind of what's happening with this Euro Super League, because it could mean that they get thrown out of the Premier League. So it's just such a huge decision for anyone taking that job. And I'm not sure that Brendan's probably in the space where he wants to take that risk. He probably doesn't need to at the moment. But yeah, I mean, this whole Euro Super League thing is just going to have massive ramifications if it does go ahead, especially in terms of what the domestic leagues do to kind of reply to it. But I think that any manager thinking about taking the Spurs job has to bear that in mind, don't they?
How was the weekend on the football front for the firm?
Football front was okay, but to be honest, in terms of all the action, it was mainly racing. So I will skip over football and I will go straight to racing. I don't really know where to start, to be honest, because there's so many places. I guess if we just start chronologically and just go through the week as it was, because we have really good stuff in the midweek and then obviously going into the weekend. So we'll start with Newmarket on Wednesday. Sacred was a level result in the Neil Gwynn. Love Is You was probably the most popular there, and the one to take out the race could potentially be Saffron Beach, I thought. I'm not sure if you saw the race midweek, the Neil Gwynn, Johnny.
I actually didn't, so I have to catch up. Yeah.
So in terms of 1,000 guineas ramifications, Sacred's now 12 to 1, Saffron Beach is 14, and Love Is You is 20 to 1. I actually took a bit of 16 Saffron Beach. I thought that she could definitely improve for the extra furlong when they obviously get to the Guineas time. And Sacred, what's interesting to know from Sacred was that Ryan Moore got off Sacred and said that he didn't think that she'd go further than 7 furlongs.
Yeah.
Then William Haggis came out on Sunday and said that they are going to go for Guineas. There's only one Guineas, and we'll find out if we don't stay. There's a lovely kind of calendar for 7 furlongs. So she's obviously going to go there. The other one from Wednesday was the Earl of Sefton, which Mai Oberon won, which was a great result for us, and that was on the same card. San Donato and the favourite Global Giant were by far the most popular with punters there. So we actually had a good result and kind of came out level across the two big races on the Wednesday. Then moving on to Thursday, again at Newmarket, Master of Seas was by far the worst result for us in the Craven. Obviously, it was the Craven meeting. He stayed on late in the day and obviously won the race there. He's 8-1 with us for the 2,000 guineas. And the second horse in the race, Labarosa, was the second worst result in the race. So it was a real bad race for us all in all, with the Godolphin ones going well.
The Guineas looks interesting.
It certainly does now. We actually laid a very big bet on St Mark's Basilica. So he would be a solid 6-figure loser for us now. So we obviously got the news. I think the Battleground might not go. Am I right in thinking that? So you saw Wembley and St Mark's Basilica shortening. They were both around the 7-1 mark. Wembley's now shorter at about 5s. And St Mark's Basilica were actually bottom price now 4-1, obviously, because we've laid this big bet. So he would be the really big loser for us in the 2,000 guineas. But it's starting to hot up now. So we've only got a couple of weeks to go. Santa Barbara still short price favourite for the 1,000 guineas. But these trials are kind of coming on thick and fast now. And we're kind of getting to the stage now where you don't have enough time to actually get a trial into them because it's only a couple of weeks away. So that'd be where we kind of stand with the guineas at the moment. Just one more race to talk about from Newmarket on Thursday would be the Avenant Stakes. We laid Oxted huge in this race. So it was a massive result for us to get him beat. Summer and obviously a seasoned handicapper from last year getting the job done there, which meant that going into the weekend, we were actually in front on the week. That did change at the weekend though, starting with the Curragh on Saturday. I'm sure you probably watched a bit of the Curragh.
I did indeed.
Good stuff. The Gladness Stakes at Lancaster House was an okay result in the end. I thought that was going to be much worse than what it was going to be. He shortened up right towards the off. He kind of went out to the 3.8, 3.9 region. SP 9-4. I think he went off about 3.3 around that mark.
He's a remarkable horse because being by Galileo, what he can do over those distances is it's very, very unusual that he has the pace for 7 furlong races as he has. And, if you back him, if he's kind of thereabouts in the final furlong over that trip, he's basically going to win because he's going to be very strong.
He put the bed he put the race to bed really quickly, didn't he? He just kicked and then that was it. It was 2 lengths clear and he was never going to come back to him. So it looks like he could go Queen Anne, were the reports after the race. So be interesting to see him. This is the opening race for Royal Ascot now, isn't it? The Queen Anne. The other race to talk about from the Curragh would be the Alleged Stakes. We laid Broome huge here and this really swung our weekend. We could have had a really good winning weekend if Broome were to get beat.
7's in the run.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, those last 2.5, 3 furlongs were probably the longest furlongs I've ever watched. I'm just saying, surely this is beat now. I gave it like an early beat in my head, which is obviously the wrong thing to do, and I'd be cursed if I was sitting in the office rather than sitting at home for even thinking it.
And these are singles bets, are they?
Yes, this was a very, very large single bet, which meant that we were just behind on the weekend and the week. It was really, really tough to take.
Even at, what was it, like 4-7 or something?
2-1.
Right.
2-1, yeah. So really, really short, but it was such a large stake that it kind of knocked us for 6. One really cozily in the end, to be honest. But
I'd say he or she wasn't thinking that like 2 furlongs down though.
Yeah, true. I mean, when you came into that last furlong, you're just going, we're obviously going to get picked up here on the Thundering Nights. But it was a real tough watch for us, and left us miles behind on the week, unfortunately. And I just wanted
a 1-2 shot left you miles behind on the week because of a single bet. That is the beauty of bookmaking that maybe is long since forgotten by some people. Some people still have very big bets.
Yeah. I mean, this was a very large bet that came in. I can't disclose amounts or anything like that.
It wasn't you, was it?
I could tell you what, if I was having a bet like that, I'd be pretty happy, I think. Just one more race.
You were pretty happy.
Yeah, true. But I think I'd be slightly happier. Just one more to touch on from the Curragh. I just wanted to touch on the opening maiden. Where
nice performance by the winner.
Yeah, Glounthorn or
Glounthorn, yeah. It's named after a region of near enough to Cork City.
I really struggle with the Irish pronunciations of when you've got places. There was one recently that I had really bad trouble with.
So essentially what this is you had Irish place names, and then when the British renamed them, they didn't tend to name them as an English translation. They just made up an English name for them. So a lot of them are kind of just complete nonsense. And this would be sort of like Glounthorn, like it doesn't mean anything. It's like Dunguib, for example, will be named after Dunguib in English. Obviously means absolutely nothing. Doon in Irish was like an old fort, like an old kind of stronghold. So that's where it's good. These names go back millennia or whatever. But when the English place names came in, they kind of just basically named them. They gave them a fake English name. So a lot of them are essentially nonsense, like Glounthorn.
Right, okay. So if I get it wrong, it's not a massive issue then.
Not at all. I think Jim Bulger called some of these horses Irish names just to have a wind up the English commentators, because it's obviously impossible to pronounce,
Yeah, it's really difficult. But I thought that he was really, really impressive. And when he goes up in Triple Thing there, we win really nice races there. So just one to take from the car, not from a trading perspective, but just a bit of an eye, well, not an eye catcher because it won the race, but one to take forward anyway. And then that was kind of it for Saturday, because we obviously had the Duke of Edinburgh's funeral. So all the racing and kind of major sport got moved to Sunday. So I think we can start off with Ayr. We had the Scottish National. There was a lot of money for Dingo Dollar, but the gamble of the race was Engard. Was around the 16-1 mark, and then he went up around 8-9-1. Really shortened up on the exchanges, but really late money. He ran no sort of a race whatsoever. The main losers going into the race for us were Mighty Thunder, Mr. Fog Patches, and Dingo Dollar, the aforementioned. Mighty Thunder was a terrible result for us. And we also gave the place part back as a free bet on 7 horses due to our all over the place offer. So well done to the punters if they didn't quite get a place, but still managed to finish the race. They got their place part.
Great name as well.
Yeah, he is indeed, and he stayed on very, very well, Mighty Thunder. So fantastic race for Lucinda Russell, and I think it was Tommy Scudamore on board. Very happy for him. The Scottish champion hurdle, Coleco, was the main loser there. We laid a decent time at 4-1, but the eventual winner, Milkwood, was the only other loser in the book, so we didn't manage to cop there, unfortunately. And then the one more to mention from there is the future champions Novice Chase. All Mankind was the only loser in the book. SP, they're about 11-10. There was small money for Tamrak de Matam, but he was pretty disappointing. So that would be it for Ayr. And then just touching on Newbury very quickly. We had some really good racing from Newbury, obviously more kind of Guineas trials, so we will talk about the Guineas very, very briefly again. Al Azi was a horrific result in the surprise stake. We had quite a big bet, 6-4, just for the off, and that put us way behind on the day. So we were behind on the Saturday, and then we were behind on the Sunday as well. He was hugely impressive, and Haggis thinks quite a lot of him, I think. He spoke about him on Sunday beforehand, just that if he went and did what he thought he could do in this race, he would have big, big plans for him. Could potentially turn into a King George horse, but he couldn't even stay further. I think he might be a bit of a stayer, so we could see him over longer trips than 1 mile 4 anyway. Alcohol Free was another bad result for us here at Star in the first group race, in one of the first group races of the day in the Fred Darling. He hung slightly, and just one on the bob. He'd be 9-1 for the 1,000 guineas. Sorry, she would be 9-1 for the 1,000 guineas. I'd be happy enough to lay that. I thought that she wasn't kind of taking, and I thought that she would kind of get eaten up by the kind of improvers that we saw earlier in the week from Newmarket. And just while I was talking about the 1,000 guineas, Snow Lantern, who is out of Sky Lantern, a lovely grey, a lovely Desi, as we would call it in the office, won the first race on the card, is now 8-1 for the 1,000 guineas. And like I said earlier, Santa Barbara is still a really solid favourite there at 7-4. So the market for the 1,000 guineas is shaping up really nicely, but Aidan O'Brien has a real stronghold. When we get on to the boys, Chindit was a level result in the book for the Greenham. Insomnia at 80-1 was really well backed with us, as well as Alchemate. Chindit would now be 10-1 for the 2,000 guineas. I think the one to take out of the race for me was actually Memento, who actually came second. Probably not for the Guineas, but actually when it goes over to shorter trips, so showed real burst of speed. It's a real speedy type. When he gets dropped back in trip, I think he can win some nice races.
How is your book for the 1,000 guineas?
But for the 1,000 guineas at the moment, Santa Barbara would be a small loser, but we haven't kind of laid any huge stuff there yet. It would be more the 2,000 where we have seen the money, and that would, like I said earlier, be for some Moss Basilica, laid at 5-1 each way. So it will kind of take time for the 1,000 guineas book to kind of build up. I think it looks a bit of a one-horse race, but that horse obviously hasn't even raced yet this season. So it'll be really interesting to kind of see what happens there when we do get there in a couple of weeks' time. But the way that Aidan O'Brien is speaking about Santa Barbara, you'd think that she's just an absolute good thing, wouldn't you?
Yeah, she's by Camelot and St. Mark's Basilica is by Sayuni, so neither would necessarily be associated with getting Guineas winners. But
she looks speedy though, Santa Barbara.
She does,
which is really interesting by Camelot, who obviously was a really good stayer, even though winning the Derby, etc., was a really, really good stayer. But she just looks quick, I thought.
What else have we got?
Lastly, just speak about a bit of Formula One very briefly. Verstappen won at Imola for the Red Bull team. I thought it was a really exciting race, actually. I'm actually getting into a bit of F1 this year after watching the Drive to Survive on Netflix.
You're not the only one, yeah. It's like I'm not including that, but I haven't watched the Netflix doc, to be fair.
Yeah, I used to love Formula One when I was a kid, with like Montoya and all those type of drivers, and then kind of just completely grew out of love of it. But since I started watching these Drive to Survive on Netflix, I'm starting to really buy into it. There was a big crash between two Mercedes drivers, between Bottas and George Russell. They kind of had a bit of a tear up afterwards as well. Hamilton made a mistake towards the start, which meant that he was kind of far back, and he seized his way through the field and managed to pick places up. In terms of how we bet for the Formula One now, it's actually a lot tighter. Lewis Hamilton's 8-11. He leads by 1 point. Max Verstappen is 6-5. Bottas 33-1, and then 40 parts. It does look a two driver race in the race to actually win the Formula One titles this year. But we're only 2 races in, and at least it's more competitive than what we're used to anyway.
Thanks a million, Flynn.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yeah, that was Trader Chat, and we'll be back next week.